National-Anarchism. Can such a thing even exist? I recently watched a recording of a live stream where a particular influencer in the online sphere of political content made the claim that ideological anarchists and the extreme/far right have far more of an ideological similarity with one another than the far right does to historic and current Marxist governments. A common anarchist, libertarian, socialist critique of historic Marxism. This argument is mainly based upon a tracing of the political writings and beliefs of Pierre J. Proudhon in the 1800s to the actions either proclaimed or realized and beliefs of European fascism that emerged in the early 20th century, and arguably has continued beyond. The critique begins at Proudhon, so we should begin in 1800s France. There are several people known to me who consider themselves part of the anarchist/libertarian socialist circle of politics, where they would ever consider the term national anarchism, we'll get to where I took this from later, even viable as a political concept. Responses were somewhat expectable. That's neo-Nazi, fascist, reactionary horseshit. How can an anarchist be nationalist when we are anti-state by definition? The nation and the state are synonyms. National anarchism is a cover for right-wing hooligans who wish to give themselves a veneer of anti-capitalist, anti-statist populism. Pierre-Joseph Proudhon was a French political philosopher who is by many considered the intellectual father of what most people would now refer to as anarchism in a political sense. Advocated for what many would consider the baseline demands of most social anarchist movements in the 19th and 20th centuries, transformation of the post-Napoleonic state into a confederation of autonomous communes. The word for what is effectively a town council in French politics is commune. Along with the collectivization of all enterprises into the hands of workers or unions or the local councils, replacement of standing conscription army with local militias, end of property speculation and for interest banking. With anarchists I've consulted with, Proudhon is generally accepted as one of, if not the progenitor of political anarchism, and their precepts are usually accepted as an adequate policy proposal for the basis of anarchism. There are several aspects to Proudhon's beliefs and viewpoints which would likely have not sat well with modern anarchists. The local militia-based army that Proudhon advocated would not be voluntary. All men would be required to serve a 2-year term in the armed forces. Proudhon did not advocate the immediate ending of the currency system as many later anarchists do. Collective enterprises could accumulate. Proudhon was quite openly anti-Semitic, as some contemporaries and modern scholars would claim, to a paranoid level, and was said to hold an almost Volkish, early German proto-fascist conception of the nation and racialism, called for non-Frenchmen to leave France. Proudhon, despite not advocating expansionist war, was known to be highly infatuated with war and militarism, believing war had a beauty in its own right. And Proudhon was notably anti-suffrage and patriarchal, even by his own time standards by some accounts, believing that even under his proposed mutualism, women would only have two options in life, being housewives or prostitutes. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, Proudhon's initial influence had faded for most of the European left, being supplanted by later anarchist authors in Marxism, but his ideas had found some new acolytes within France. Georges Sorel would use Proudhon as an influence when developing his view of national syndicalism. Sorel would support the Bolsheviks in 1917, but would endorse the Fiume endeavor and Italian fascism shortly before his death. The openly fascist Circle Proudhon was formed by several of Sorel's acolytes. This group effectively completed a transition of Proudhon's ideas to the right. Action Francaise and Maurras would also quote Proudhon. The Free State of Fiume was a city statelet created by an Italian poet, Gabriel D'Annunzio, an Italian nationalist and irredentist who objected to the city being gifted to the newly formed Yugoslavia in the aftermath of World War I. Annunzio was a member of the Italian Nationalist Association, de facto predecessor to the PNF and Italian fascism. Notably, much like the Circle Proudhon, a prominent group of turncoat anarchists would choose to support Annunzio's endeavor, under the belief it could result in the creation of an anarchist commune. Annunzio's government would implement or proclaimed its intention to many of Proudhon's reforms, the handing over of all businesses to workers' unions, closures of banks and seizing of landlord property, etc. How did some anarchist thinkers justify loyalty to Volkish ideas of nationalism espoused by the Circle Proudhon and Annunzio, while rejecting the conceptual idea of the state at the same time? The most common concept for a state to predicate its existence on is the nation state, A state where the interests of a particular nation, race, culture, ethnicity, etc., are represented through the state. But some other forms of state arguably exist. There could be an ideological state, for instance. The USSR contained nation states within it, but the federal organ was ideological, above all nations or ethnicity. A certain state could be entirely post-national, Singapore, some suggest. This makes it slightly easier to understand why anarchists may be capable of supporting nationalism, while simultaneously opposing the state. D'Annunzio and the Circle Proudhon wished to free their nations, the Italian and French peoples, from the restraint of the state. Proudhon and anarchists, more widely, have also had a view on violence and war quite reminiscent of fascism. Might is right and winner takes all. Some groups and writers in the present day openly adopt this moniker of national anarchism, the term I opened the video with. A prominent theorist of this tendency, Southgate, was a member of numerous British far-right groups such as the National Front and BNP, went on to start his own publication up to disputes over the nature of the state, religion, and these organizations' views on ecology and anti-capitalism. Southgate's writings call for nationally homogenous, conservative yet anti-capitalist communes with ownership of all firms and agriculture by workers and farmers. Local responsibility for policing and defense, once more an almost striking similarity to Proudhon. His ideas would also weaponize fears of ecological collapse popularized by 90s eco-anarchism. We can offer the presenter of this video's two views on this subject. Does anarchism have an ideological through line which has the potential to draw anarchist fascist movements? Almost certainly yes. Are concepts like national anarchism foundationally opposed on an economic, social, and governmental level to what the Proudhonists of the 1800s wanted? Unsure, but an initial assessment shows certain similarities that most anarchists would likely not eagerly admit. It should be noted that the presenter of this video does not for a moment actually believe that national anarchism or any other such similar tendency is an earnest attempt at anti-capitalist politics, simply analyzing the rhetoric of the groups compared to more traditional social anarchists to measure their rhetoric against each other.